Welcome to the walkthrough for assignment 2A's frequently made mistakes. We'll start by giving you a link here to Piazza posting where I provide some guidance on how to properly format streams operations, as well as how to properly comment the streams operations. Please take a look at the posting at this link and make sure you follow that. I gave this comment to a lot of people because you're doing some things inconsistently and not commenting everything consistently or at all. So make sure you comment everything. Let's take a look at an example of a problem with the splitter factory method. Obviously, you need to do something other than return null here, or your program will crash. Next problem here, it's not really a problem, just something to be aware of. You don't need to initialize an int to 0. That's what its value is going to be set to by default. A lot of people forgot to check whether action equaled null in the try advanced method. You need to check for action being null, and if it is null, you need to throw the null pointer exception for this particular case. We don't want to blow things up without being aware of why you're blowing things up. Likewise, down here, don't call the get method when you access the element in the array. Instead, use the unchecked toArray method. And definitely don't be calling the toArray method, which makes a copy, which is very expensive. So calling get will do a range check that's unnecessary. And so you want to make sure that you call the unchecked toArray method. Also, make sure that you check to ensure that the index is within bounds. And return null if it's null. Down here, the try-split method, a lot of people had issues with this. First and foremost, make sure that you handle the case where there are no more elements to split. In that case, you need to return a null rather than allocating a new splitter. Secondly, the computations are incorrect here to try to split the array in half. So make sure you have the correct computations. Another good thing to keep in mind, try to follow the don't repeat yourself or dry principle. And in this particular case, you need to make sure that you stash the m index plus m end divided by 2 result in some local variable called midpoint or mid or something, rather than having to revise this and make the call or make that computation multiple times. There were also some really funky computations or overly complicated computations to figure out whether things were split or when to split or how much to split. You don't need to differentiate between midpoint being even or odd. That's overkill. Likewise, make sure you use the right comparison. Subtracting the current index from the end range and dividing by 2 doesn't make any sense. This code is just not correct, so make sure you do it correctly. Here's an example of a midpoint computation that's too complicated, so you don't need to be this complicated, it's clever. Now let's get into some problems with the sequential streams crawler implementations. So first and foremost, this implementation is simply incomplete and incorrect. They don't handle the page elements, it only handles the images, so that's not correct. Make sure that you don't use weird things like atomic integers. Also, stay away from using for each. That's not the right way to do this. You want to use a stream, and you want to use a stream that's going to merge together the processing for both images and pages using the ternary operator. I'll talk about that in a second, as well as using either map or map to int. So don't do code like this. It's very complicated and confusing. So you should either use map and reduce or use map to int and sum together with the ternary operator. Again, don't have 2 separate streams, merge everything into one stream so it just goes one time. Down here, if you're using map to int, for example, or map for that matter, you want to use the ternary operator instead of using an if-else statement. That'll greatly simplify the way in which you write the behavior that map to int will process. You don't have to have these extra braces. Let's go take a look at process image. So various things, make sure that you comment this stuff properly, make sure that you format this properly as per the discussion at the Piazza link I gave you above. Also, there's no need to call get or download image each time. That should just be called once before you start this stream. And also make sure that your code properly filters out null images. And also don't collect things into a list and then go ahead and take the size of the list. But instead, what you want to be doing is you want to go ahead and use the count terminal operation at the end of the stream rather than putting things into a list. So hopefully that'll help you do a better job of assignment 2A. Most people did a pretty good job of things, but make sure that you're thorough and consistent in formatting and documenting your code. In particular, do not glom everything into one line. We'll have a stream that goes in one line off the end of the screen. That's a very inconsistent way to format things. It doesn't scale, and of course you can't easily comment each of the aggregate operations, which is really what you should be doing when you write streams. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.